Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we elevate marketing leaders inside and out. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, master marketer, executive leader, and mentor to ambitious marketing leaders wanting to advance their careers. Each episode is filled with genuine, unscripted conversations with some of the world's top marketing experts, accomplished leaders, and industry trailblazers representing brands, both large and small. Our goal with this podcast and everything we do is to help you master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into an industry-leading rainmaker. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. In this podcast, something different happened. This one got a little more personal for me than others have in the past, thanks in part to my guest, who also showed up in her most vulnerable state to discuss the hardest week of her marketing career to date. Please meet Akvile DeFazio, founder of a very successful marketing agency, AKvertise. With over 9 years of experience running her own agency, Akvile and I get raw and vulnerable about bouncing back after losing our biggest clients as agency owners, separating our professional setbacks from our personal identity, turning vulnerability into a surprise superpower, and then figuring out what comes next in our careers and so much more. So without further ado, let's dive right in and make it rain with Akvile DeFazio. Akvile, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Veronica.
Okay, so this is good. We're going to do a little bit differently on this podcast episode, and you're being a really good sport because literally seconds before I push record, I asked you if you'd be open to bringing us back to like the worst week of your professional life. And you said yes. I'm not here to trigger anything, but when you filled out some of the notes in getting prepared for this podcast, just so everybody knows, you talked about like a really, really hard week where you lost, and I won't tell the story, but like you can tell your story. It was one of the worst weeks that you've had as a professional. And I think as marketers, we talk about our highs and we gloss over our lows. And maybe because we're just coming out of like a 6-planet retrograde. I don't even know. I'm in the mood to go deep and to get raw about stuff that most of us don't talk about. So really quickly, you are an agency owner. You made an enormous bet on yourself to do your own thing. I am also a former agency owner. I know the highs and lows of that life. Take me to one of the worst weeks of your marketing professional life.
It was 7 years ago, and it still feels like yesterday, to be honest. I started my agency 9 years ago, and the first year I had a full book of business. People were sending me nonstop work. I was on cloud nine, and I didn't do a lot of things that I think new agency owners or somebody that has previously worked in an agency, which I did not, may have been more aware of, and how to diversify your client roster. And a lot of my clients were about the same size, and I remember it was like almost year two. It was in March. And all of a sudden I get 2 emails in the same week from my 2 largest clients that I've had since day one. And they both said, we need to turn everything off immediately. And like, that's it. No heads up, no gradual plan. I did not see it coming. Yeah. One of them didn't see it coming either. Their CEO resigned. So everything had to be on hold until they reconfigured, which was not my doing, but it just came as a huge surprise that I was not financially expecting, especially since I was still building up that nest egg for being able to sustain business and have more in my savings. And the other one got acquired by a large company. They knew that was coming, but they didn't give me a heads up, maybe because of, proprietary conversations behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to.
Yeah.
So thankfully they came back to me the following year under the larger company, which, is a testament to 100%. The quality of work that I did. And I was pleased about that. But having those 2 messages coming to my inbox that week was devastating. And there was nothing I could do to save them. I didn't have other clients lined up, and all of my other clients were smaller. So these were my 2 quote unquote whales at the time. And they accounted for about 90% of my business. And I was in disbelief. I still feel it now just talking about it.
Yeah.
But, I didn't bounce back for 8 months. But as you said, you bet on yourself. And I did not want to go back to working for someone else again. And I really wanted to give everything I could, but I didn't know how to do business development. Not that I got lucky. I worked hard to build up my network of people. And that is how I got all of my business before. But I didn't know other business development tactics of how do agencies do this. I got lucky and I coasted on it, maybe a little too comfortably for too long. But that was a huge lesson for me in how to get scrappy, how to find business, how to actually do this right and diversify my client roster. So I was in the negative for business. Like I paid things, but I had nothing left over at the other day. I didn't even take myself out for a coffee for almost a year. I was like, I can't even do that. Like, I really need to just like buckle down and figure this out because I need to make this work. I
Sure.
don't like, there was no other, like, I know there's other options. I could go back and
Yeah.
work somewhere, like, worst comes to worst, I could be barista again, which I've done for a number of years. But I was like, no, I only want to go forward. So I learned how to do business development and I recouped, but oof.
Because I'd be lying to you as a business owner, even today, where there's not these days or stretch of days where I'm like, F this. Like it's so
Yeah.
like anybody who's ever tried entrepreneurship, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's just these very humbling moments
Hmm.
and where it's like, yeah, I'm cut from this cloth, but I don't like this cloth. Like there just comes a point where you're like, I don't like this. Like, as hard as all of those working days were, screw this. Cause I think the thing that nobody really they don't know until they know is, when you work for somebody, they feed you. Not only do they give you a paycheck, but like unless you're the salesperson on the team, like you're being fed business
Yeah.
to work on or execute or provide services for. When you are your own service provider, your own consultant, agency owner, whatever type of marketer that you are, now you got to hunt your own meat, and then you're skinning the meat, and then you're preparing the meat, and then it's like you are literally the entire process for a very long time, unless you are just like bestowed upon money from the heavens. But like for most of us, we literally had to like eat what we hunt.
Yeah.
So in that year that a former barista is not even drinking coffee, were there not these moments where you're like, screw it, I'm going back to working for someone else? And why didn't you after so long?
No, I couldn't. I don't know. There's like this strong, when I decide to do something, I see it through. And I was like, this is too soon to shut the doors. I know I'm in a really tough situation right now. You know, grateful for my husband being like, do what you need. We're okay. Like,
Mm,
I got us. If, like right now, like you've fallen, I'm going to pick us up.
mm.
And, we've had moments where we've switched because that's what you do in
Yeah,
a
same,
partnership.
same.
And so grateful to have someone like him and being able to make sure that I don't have to stress about other things in our life at the time and just focus on my business because he believed in me, I believed in me, and I left my previous job for some terrible reasons. And I was
Mhm.
like, I can't go back to that, even if the brand's different, the leadership's different. I wanted to have the responsibility and the
Oh,
authority to do what I wanted to do, but also help other brands
yeah.
and have control over that. Where you don't really. There's pros and cons, right? Working in house was great because I can just maybe shut the door at the end of the day or close the laptop and be like, okay, see you tomorrow. It's mine, but it's not really mine. Whereas this internally, I had no other option. I
Mhm,
was like, I have to make this work.
mhm, mhm,
There are days where sometimes I do think about
mhm.
the grass on the other
Sure,
side. Is it really greener? But
sure.
I'm just trying to water my own lawn and appreciate it, if
I love
that
that.
makes
I
sense.
love that. Okay, so here's, I guess, and maybe this is just me bringing out my own stuff on this podcast with you, but it's
No,
like
go for it.
when clients, even now to this day, like if a member, if I get one of those types of emails, right? My initial reaction, if I'm being completely honest and vulnerable, is I take it personal quickly. And then I've gotten better to like, Veronica talks to Veronica, like, no, 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 this is not personal. This is not a reflection of your self worth. Calm down, But I still have that immediate reaction of like, oh, they don't want me, which is wild. So, like, when your two clients, for like you said, for different reasonable situations, acquisition, and obviously your person changed, right? Like the head count or the personnel changed. Did you take it personal? Like, how did it, I guess, affect your self esteem, confidence, self worth? I'm just curious.
Great question. I typically do take it personally. I'm a feeler, and I've had situations with other clients and prospective clients over the years where they didn't go with me or something changed, and I did take it personally. But in that week where I lost those two clients, I could separate that knowing like this was not my
Okay,
doing. I
good.
know they turned everything off. It's not like they were kicking me out and switching to someone else, but it did teach me a valuable lesson, not just how to do business development, but make my contracts better. I just kind of just flying by the seat of my pants. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, like whatever. Secured my contracts, made it better so that if something happens unforeseen, I still have a little bit of a runway. I try not to take it personally, but I do with
Mm-hmm.
most things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But funny enough, in that instance, I did not, because there was
That's
nothing, I
awesome.
was not part of that equation.
No, and that's awesome too. I am not a lawyer and I'm not sponsored by a lawyer, but let me just tell you that me also learning the value of strong contractual frames in a client service provider relationship has been a game changer for me, because when I have to have one of those uncomfortable conversations about like I need to end this or get out of this, it's like, whoa, like two people are not having this conversation as Veronica and so. The contract that both parties signed is actually the rule keeper. It's its own entity, it's its own thing, and it sets and dictates the rules. And so like that's been like one of the tricks for me, at least, to
Mhm.
separate myself from the entity that is the business that has the contracts. How
It's
have
hard to
you,
do.
well, I'm just going to ask you, like, how have you is there any tips or tricks that you've learned in your own dealings to separate yourself from your company's identity that is obviously of your own making and creation?
I still have that challenge from time to time, but I really have to try to step back and be like, okay, is this a personal matter? Is
Mm-hmm.
this like, it's just business? I'm getting better, but it's not flawless
Mm-hmm.
about, this is business, because I'm so vested in our clients and the communications that I have with them that I am my brand. Like half of my brand name is my name, and I'm tied into it, but I'm learning how to separate a little bit, but without losing that warmth and humanity to it, but also, the downsides of it where I might take things personally. But if I can share, I just remembered another thing that week that happened is perspective, and how I was hard on myself through that process of like figuring out what to do
Yeah.
next. I got desperate and I felt really embarrassed to do this, but I didn't know what else to do, because, lead generation takes time, especially if you're starting with
Yeah.
an empty funnel.
Yeah.
So I posted on Twitter reluctantly, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna look like such a failure to my peers. And I put out there, I'm accepting clients. I can do XYZ. Let me know if you're looking for someone like me. And I deleted it almost like 10 times. And then I was like, I'm just gonna walk away. And coincidentally, I wasn't thinking about it. A week or two prior, I had just incorporated because I was freelancing, and then I was like, let's do this for real.
Yeah.
So I had some friends in the industry hit me up and they're like, hey, this is so exciting. Congratulations. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm crying behind my computer
Yeah,
right
like
now.
what are we congratulating? Yeah.
And I told them what was going on in reality. And they're like, oh, well, you just incorporated. Now you're saying you're taking on more work. So I'm like, to us, it looks like you're actually growing.
The optic.
Yeah, I was like, perspective is a funny thing. And to this day, whether I need clients or not, even if I just want to send some clients to some friends in my referral network, I still put it out there, because the return I got from just posting it was massive. And just being vulnerable has turned into a superpower for me, where I used to be embarrassed by the vulnerability. But, when you say like taking it personally, in those moments where I do, I just say it like it is.
Mm.
And to my surprise, it's been very fruitful, whether I'm trying to get something out of it or not. Usually it's just like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows running a company, regardless of whether it's an agency or something else.
Yeah.
But I think it's rare to see vulnerability, especially when it's like, oh, I'm winning. Look at all this
Yeah.
money I'm spending and this return I'm getting. And it's like, yeah, but what's the context? Like, let's go a little deeper. And it's just, I don't know. I used to be embarrassed, but that shifted to, that's okay. Like, people resonate with
Yeah,
that,
they
and this is
respond.
normal.
I mean, there's an emotional connection. I think Brene Brown would be very proud of this conversation. So,
I do love
who
Brene and all
doesn't
her
love
books.
Brene? Come
Yeah.
on. Hey Rainmakers, it's Veronica, and we'll get back to today's episode. But before that, I have an exciting invitation for all of you aspiring, ambitious marketing leaders. If you are serious about advancing your career in marketing and you're looking for an expert to give you some personal insights, guidance, tips, then I'm going to invite you to schedule a free Pathway to Promotion call with me. This is a special one-on-one call with just you and me to discuss your current roadblocks in your career, your long-term aspirations and ambition, and the next best step for you and and your personal promotion. Head to pathwaycall.com or click the link in my show notes to schedule your free Pathway to Promotion call. Now back to today's episode. I want to talk about something as well, in almost like a cousin to this conversation thematically. I think a lot of marketers aspire to do their own things, usually because they're so fried, burned out, the grind of working somewhere or for someone. And so like why anybody does entrepreneurship or attempts entrepreneurship is like the promise of freedom of some capacity, financial freedom, time freedom, freedom of choice, right? There have been some crazy moments in all of my entrepreneurial pursuits, but I did hit my personal mental well-being rock bottom, my worst burnout, when I was running an agency. So you kind of talked about how like you couldn't go back to where you were because that was not healthy. But I know you experienced burnout as an agency owner too. And it's almost like a different flavor of burnout. Like it's when people say I'm burned out, I'm like, but wait, what kind of burnout? Are you burned out because you have a non-supportive partner at home and you're carrying the bulk of the weight of like the responsibilities at home and your professional pursuits? Are you burned out because your boss is a complete prick and it's never enough? Are you burned out trying to hunt for clients while also fulfilling the clients that you have? Like there's different flavors of burnout. And so when people are leaving one burnout and then this huge surprise hits them when they're like, oh, wait, burnout followed me, but it's a different kind of burnout. Like, what do I do with that? So if you feel vulnerable sharing, like what's been your burnout story, but also your big burnout realizations?
One of the many reasons why I left my last in-house job was burnout.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up replacing me with 3 people after I left. And I was like, I knew I was tired.
You were doing the job of 3.
Uh,
Oh man.
and that I've never considered breaking apart like what kind of burnout. I just, burnout's burnout. And I don't think anyone's really presented it that way to me like you just did. So that gives me some food for thought. But I definitely feel burnout that is a different brand of burnout. You know, running in a company, you're wearing many hats.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a mother, so I'm trying to balance out things and do the best that I can with everything and make sure whatever I'm in front of is
Your
getting
attention.
the attention.
Yeah.
Yes. So I feel like I've been burned out this year,
Mm-hmm.
to be completely honest. But the brand of burnout that I feel this year is that I'm not good at self-care. So I'm trying to go out for a walk for lunch, just small things like not eating in front of my computer. And I see people talking about this all the time. Like, it's not that hard to do, but it's just, oh, like, I could just I don't multitask anymore. I used to be a serial multitasker, but now I'm like, but I feel like I can eat a meal, but I'm not respecting my meal and that time to just like step away. And I haven't taken any vacations this year until just recently. And I feel like I've developed this phobia of like closing my laptop. And I know that what I do is not life or death.
Yeah, it's not brain surgery.
Yeah. So I've had a hard time disconnecting, and I know everything's going to be fine if I step away. So I'm trying to do it more often because I know that when I do, I feel a million times better when I come back to it. I have fresh ideas. My mind has time to just wander, and wonderful things sometimes come about. And I feel like I just need to, I'm going to have to do this after we get off of this today, but actually block it off on my calendar since I live by my calendar. But yeah, like I'm just burned out from not giving myself adequate breaks through the day or through the quarter or whatever it might be.
Well, number one, can I just thank you? And also, I see you, right? And
Right
so
back at
I
you.
see you, and I appreciate you sharing that, admitting that, because, like you said, it's hard to, especially when you want to come off like I got it all together type of professional. So,
Hmm.
like, if people are concerned about you personally, then would they hire you professionally? And that's a huge optic that we are constantly trying to PR for ourselves to a deficit. And I know that very well. And I think it's even harder on women than it is even our male counterparts, if I'm being completely
Yeah.
honest, right? They
Yeah.
have it too. My husband's in sales, like they definitely have it too. It's just different.
Yeah.
I feel like we're this, I don't know. I just feel like telling you all my things, but like 2023 for me was also a year where I wanted to play it differently for my own well-being. And so like I dedicated this year to my physical well-being, my mental well-being, my sexual well-being, my mental, spiritual, physical, mental, sexual, spiritual health. Like those were the big 4 buckets that
Yeah.
I felt like, despite my professional success, were not nearly the level of priority that they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was tired of putting it off. Right. And so like
Yeah.
this year I've gone all in, like to the degree of I now have a trainer and I go to the F45 gym. I work with an IFS therapist, which I highly recommend. You pick the therapy for you. There's different styles and different models. IFS is my personal favorite. I've been in an intimacy mastermind because highly functional, high performing women also have low hunger. Wink, wink. Right? It's an offset when you're operating at a high level and your cortisol is high and your adrenals are like tired for a really long period of time and
Yeah.
you've had kids. It's going to adversely affect your hunger in that
Right.
category. And then of course spiritually, like just being closer to my creator, so to speak, right? And it's like almost like KPI level obsession on my part. And this year has been very different for me. It doesn't mean that life has been easier or that the business has gone, like, it's not like it's transformed and I've never had, all the money right. No, it's not like that. But I feel different going through the motions than I have in the past. And it's not just lighting a candle for myself or taking a
Yeah.
bath,
Yes.
Mm.
I mean, sometimes I wish I could do that, but I'm like, I'd rather do something else right
Yeah,
now.
no, right. Yeah, because yes. And that's the one thing that I realized in all the work that I was doing. Everything that I was approaching was very like almost like from a masculine energy where like I had to earn it. So if I wanted to take a break or if I wanted to take a day off or if I wanted to have like self-care time of whatever ways, like whether it's shopping at Target or reading a book in my bed or what, literally name it. I felt like I had to earn it if I got enough things done on my list. And like the
Yeah.
one big paradigm shift that I've experienced this year is like, I don't actually have to earn any of it. I've already earned it by being. Like, it's not
You're right.
earned.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like, so, like lots of things, lots of things. But back to like your rainmaker story, like you being the marketer that you are, like, I look at your journey, I look at everything that you've had to overcome, I look at how much you've poured, so much personal and professional development into yourself to be what you are today. What's next for you? Like, because you've had the agency for 9 years. So where does your dreams or aspirations take you next? I'm curious.
Great question. I've been stewing on
Yeah,
that for a couple of years now. I've never wanted to build the traditional agency and scale.
sure.
And it's like, this podcast is about leadership. And I like managing campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at managing people, but I prefer campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where to go next. I'm trying to figure that out, but I haven't found the answer yet because I keep wanting to do things that, how do I put this? I find more joy in things that don't make money. Because it's been away from my life for over a decade because life happened and I've deprioritized it. But I don't know.
Mm.
I'm looking for that something of like, what does my business do next? I've had 3 approaches in the last couple of years to buy my agency, but I think that people think I'm bigger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be more like a talent acquisition, but I'm not ready to let go of my
Mm-hmm.
company,
Mm-hmm.
even if I do make more. But I don't,
Oh.
I'm sorry, I don't have like a straight answer for you. I'm
No,
trying to
no,
figure that out.
no, it's an honest answer. It's the perfect kind of answer because you're not bullshitting anybody. You're being honest to
Yeah.
say, like, I'm actually very much in the in between. I cannot tell you because of the timing of this podcast, I'm like 2 days away from closing enrollment to my program called the Rainmaker Residency. And almost every marketing leader who is applying for the program is what I would call an in between marketer. They
Hmm.
are in the in between. They're either working somewhere, but they have the aspirations to do their own thing, or they are doing their own thing, but they don't like the style in which they're doing it. Because, like, you're a marketing genius, right? I'm a marketing genius. there's more than one way to make money from that genius. It doesn't necessarily
Yes.
have to be an agency owner or a service provider. It could be a consultant. It could be a fractional CMO. It could be a strategist. It could be like, there's so many ways that you can actually monetize your gift and not be confined by a particular label. And so most of the marketers that I'm meeting with are very much coming to me because like I'm in the in between, and I would like to be surrounded by other marketers who've gone through their in betweens to help me get through mine, because I'm too in it. I'm so into my jar that I can't read the label of my jar objectively anymore. And have you ever seen the elephant circle before? You know what I'm talking
I
about?
think so, but I'm not sure the context.
I'm not a nature expert, but this is my understanding, okay? Like somebody fact check me. When an elephant is in distress or in its most, how about this, in its most vulnerable time, the other female elephants will circle that elephant and put their backs towards it so that they are facing the danger and they are surrounding this elephant in their time of need.
Oh, wow. That's
And
beautiful.
I like that. To me is probably the most beautiful analogy of what I hope that I get to do for others that are in their most vulnerable moments, because that's when you need a tribe, a circle of elephants the most, you know? So I loved your
Yeah.
answer because it's honest.
I feel like there's just this outside pressure of like, you do this, you build a company, you sell it or
Sure.
you close it. And it's like, well, maybe it is just a lifestyle thing for me because I'm accomplishing the goals and I'm growing every year
Mm-hmm.
in various manners, but I'm also trying to be a mother
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
live my life.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do for work, but it's not everything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Yeah.
we're multifaceted, but a lot of us online just say, I'm this one
Yeah.
thing
Just one
and I don't
label.
have a life. Yeah. So that resonated with me. I'm like, I feel like I need that circle.
Oh,
So I'm like, where do I go next? I feel like I need an answer, but do I?
yeah.
Do I need it now?
Yeah.
Maybe in a year from now, 10
Well,
years
and
from now.
it comes when it's supposed to come, because it's kind of like Michelangelo quote where like he's like, the angel was always in the stone. I just had to chip it out. I'm like, I love that. I love that quote. Okay, so here's what we do on the Ringmaker podcast. I've asked you a whole bunch of non-scripted questions,
Hmm.
put you on the spot. You've been a gem. Now you get to put me on the spot. So the final question is yours to ask me. What would you like to ask me?
Okay. As a leader, what has been your most difficult decision and what factors contributed to you making the best possible choice?
The oh, the hardest points of my leadership journey hasn't even been my pivots or my chapter changes or my in betweens. It's been when my decisions have caused other team members to be in an in between. So, like when I sold my agency, I put my team in somebody else's hands and I put them in the in between. Or when I left corporate to do my own thing, I left that team that I had loved and nurtured for so long, and I left them in the hands of someone that I didn't think was a great leader. And I cried about it, because so like sometimes I feel like what holds me back from making moves that I think are probably long overdue is because I'm so sad or I'm so worried about the ramifications of others, like the human collateral of my personal selfish choices. That's probably been the hardest part of people management, people leadership, just being a leader to others. Because like at the end of the day, like I am the main character of my life. Like when I wake up, I am the hero of my story. And so like my story continues on, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a ripple effect of those that are in high proximity to you. And so like I take that really, really seriously. I'm not flippant with it. I take it really seriously that people spend more time with me than they do their own kids and their families if they're putting in 40 hours of work and I'm their manager, kind of thing, right? And so like, yeah, when I'm making these decisions and it could adversely affect another person that I care about, it really chews me up for a long time.
Great answer. Yeah, the things that people don't maybe consider as they're moving up into leadership positions, that's something you're going to have to
Yeah,
face.
100%. Well, Akila, I'm so happy that you came on this podcast, and you are brilliant and beautiful and honest and all of the things. We will post all of your links in the show notes that people can hang out with you. But if they would like to check out your agency, where would you like them to go?
You can go to AKvertise.com. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for being on today's Rainmaker podcast. Thank you for joining us on today's Rainmaker podcast. Marketers help other marketers. So if there's a marketer in your life who could really use a new perspective in a way that helps them advance their career, please pass this episode forward, share, leave us a review. Everything helps as we embark on helping as many marketers elevate themselves inside and out. You can always visit veronicarami.com for today's show notes, additional links to some free resources and tools for you to help you advance your career. You can always connect with us on social media at @ViaRami if you want more behind the scenes or a way for us to connect personally. Until next time, my friends, make it rain.